if I can get that so you can see me. Heck yeah. Let's start seated. Something nice and comfy. Really think about how that seat allows you to begin to connect to the practice. Nice full capacity to breathe. Think about aligning the spine in a way where you feel anchored here, grounded here. Maybe we let the eyes close if that feels advantageous. So there are these two travelers walking this path. The sun's starting to set on their travels. And they've traveled together for quite a long time. And they've been through quite a lot with one another. Let's give ourselves just another 60 seconds to really anchor our way into the practice. When it feels right for you, let's take the palms down onto something that we can ground onto. We're going to turn towards that right shoulder. So allowing the right shoulder to rotate, left shoulder can come with you here, and you can gaze behind you if it's accessible. And we'll come back to neutral, and then we'll do the same thing the second side, anchoring down on that right side and turning towards the left shoulder. Right shoulder can once again come with you. Maybe we gaze behind us. And we'll come back to neutral and then just a little seated fold. Whatever feels appropriate. You can arm kickstand, forearms or forehead to the floor. Anything to just get a little bit of that lumbar expansion going. Yeah. And eventually, we'll bring ourselves back up. Nice vertical spine, and let's transition to hands and knees tabletop. Craft that base position for our body here. Think about how the foundation of your tabletop can continue to transition as we work our way into the standing shapes as a foundation of stability. So build that stability here, and then curl your toes and maintain that level of connection and stability as you roll back into down dog. Get that expansiveness down through out the tailbone, and then feel that energy wrapping around the posterior chain, working down towards the heels. And we'll come back to hands and knees tabletop. As you transition back, it's easy for the weight distribution between the knees and the hands to be off kilter. Readjust so that you're anchored once again. Think about that foundation of stability and then just slide back into child's pose. Much easier for most of us, right? To feel anchored and grounded in child's pose. But really think about how that foundation can transition with you up into those standing shapes and down into this anchored child's pose. We'll give ourselves just another 20 seconds here. When it feels appropriate for you, let's let the fingertips grip into the mat. We'll pull ourselves forward back to that tabletop position. And from tabletop, curl our toes, lift our seat, and reconnect with our down dog. Note if any changes to the capacity of down dog have happened. Think about how the lumbar is sitting and how it's joining with the sacrum and with the thoracic spine. Get that big elevation into the hips, and then come up onto your tiptoes, and we're going to tiptoe our way forward into fold, staying on our toes for a moment as we let the head settle into the shape. And then once the head settled completely, let the heels drop. As the heels drop, the weight within the shape transitions more into the posterior chain. So the hamstrings start to take the burden of stability, or more of the burden of stability. Remember that your knees can bend. And then let's drift our awareness to our sacrum, and we will roll up vertebrae by vertebrae, working towards this foundational shape of mountain. In mountain, think about crafting, reformulating that same level of stability, that same bilateral balance that we had in tabletop. And we'll bring our hands together, heart center. The connection points with the ground are different, but think about how the weight distribution in those anchor points can be balanced. Keep that idea of balance as you slide your left foot straight back into lunge. We land here, we'll sweep the arms, fully express our crescent, and just feel your way in to this early version of crescent. How the middle of the body stays neutral. We'll drop the hands to heart center and use that to help step to the front of the mat. Rebuild that idea of stability. Think about your weight distribution balance. When it feels appropriate, hands together at heart center, the right foot's going to slide back. We'll find crescent by expressing the arms towards the ceiling or sky, and just feel our way into this early version of the shape. Eventually, hands come to heart center. We'll return to the front of the mat. Let the fingers interlace and see if it's accessible for you to push the palms away. If not, just push the backs of the hands, the knuckles away from you. So whatever feels ideal for the shoulders. And then release the arms, release the hands, release the arms straight up and overhead. And exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. As you get into the bottom of this fold, try to pull the toes up towards your nose. And as you do that, it's very likely that the weight's going to drop into the heels. And then press the toes back down and see if you can feel how the weight distribution changes. We'll plant our hands and walk back into down dog. Craft that elevation, that space of the hips. Come down to hands and knees. Tabletop, flip the tops of the feet. And sink back into child's pose. Relatively easy position to anchor in, right? But if you could compare and contrast this child's pose to the first time you were here, ask yourself if there's any more opportunity to get anchored here. And if there is, let's really try to take advantage of that anchoring capacity. Give ourselves just 15 more seconds here. When it feels appropriate, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. Reestablish that firm connection to the foundational shape that is tabletop. Think about the foundational strength, the foundational stability as you curl your toes and transition the foundational strength and stability back into down dog. Get that space and that room in the spinal column. Think about that ramping angle from the fingertips through the tailbone. And then we'll walk our way forward into fold. Inhale our way to half lift. Get that long expansiveness and exhale back into fold. As you drop into the fold, relax the shoulder girdle. Try to find length in the spinal column through relaxation, right? Down dog, we create length in the spinal column through engagement. As you relax into the fold, can you find that same length through relaxation? And then let's shift our awareness to our sacrum. We'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. We'll find our way into the top of this. Okay. Bring our hands together at heart center. Think about the weight distribution throughout the feet. Splay the toes out wide. Craft that foundation of stability. We'll slide our left foot straight back into lunge. And as you land in your lunge here, we'll sweep the arms, fully express our crescent. Think about that middle body neutrality. Smooth into that front quad. And then we're just going to peel back and find some space in that front hamstring. And then we'll smooth right back in. And just play a little bit here with the idea of finding depth with a bent knee and finding depth with a more straightened leg position. And then ground your left heel and roll open to 2. Think about how the hips are responding to this ask. And let's take our right hand down to the medial edge of that right foot so we end up in a little side angle. Big, wide shoulder girdle, stacked arm positioning. Left oblique starts to activate. Contract that left oblique as you pull yourself into 2. Spin the left heel into crescent. Smooth all the way into the depth of the shape. So really think about strong back leg. That back knee is not bent. And we smooth our way into that front space. Hands drop. And we'll return front of the mat. Note how the glute tissue and the sacrum are responding. That was a long sequence, especially this early in class, to be on that singular side. So before we bring that bilateral balance, just note how the body is responding with the asymmetry of the openness. Let's bring our hands together at heart center if they're not already there. We'll work our way to side two. Right foot slides back. We land and fully express our shape. Think about the depth into that front leg, and then start to play between the two expressions here. Thinking about how we can stay stable and foundationally sound at both edges. And then eventually, when it feels right, when you feel balance, we'll ground that right heel and roll into two. Staying open in the medial line, using the hip space, using the hamstring space. The left hand's going to head down to the medial edge, big toe edge of that left foot. Get that wide shoulder girdle, that nice arm stacking, the width and capacity to breathe within that upper body space. The right oblique's going to activate to draw us back up into two. Right heel spins up into this nice deep crescent. Think about the strength in that back leg, the stability on both legs here, this wide spacing. Hands drop and we'll return to the front of the mat. Interlace the fingers. Push the palms or the knuckles out in front of you. And then keep the hands interlaced together. We'll inhale the arms up and overhead. When you get here, think about retracting the scapula. So pulling that upper body back without too much bowing of the mid-body. Lumbar stays relatively neutral. The more of that upper abdominal activation you bring in, the easier that is. And then we'll release to fold. And settle here. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands. Walk back into down dog. Get all the way into that down dog depth. Really think about reigniting the stability of the shape. Thinking about the hand splay, that lift to the hips. And then let's come down to hands and knees tabletop. And we'll send our left foot straight back, toe mound connected to the mat. The right hand is going to move towards our medial line so that it's in line with the right knee. And then we're going to ground the left heel and open up that left arm. And I'm going to get real blurry. Here, really think about the cervical spine extending away and then draw that left shoulder into like a little bit of additional retraction. So we pull that left shoulder back. The cervical spine extends out from the rest of the spinal column. We're really long. And let's release the left hand down. The left knee will return to mirror the right, and we're going to sink back into child's pose. And so this pedaling here has the potential for some asymmetry. Think about the anchoring and stability at the sacrum. Relax so the sacrum can be balanced. Fingertips will grip into the mat. We'll pull ourselves back into tabletop. The stability remains here. The fingers are splayed out. There's engagement through the fingertips and finger mounds. Right foot slides straight back. Left hand comes in line with the left knee. Right heel grounds, right hand extends up. The opportunity here is shoulder expansion. So draw that right shoulder back. Think about how we can extend the cervical spine, that length of the neck out directly from the thoracic spine. One long extension here. Pull towards the right shoulder. Right hand comes down. Right knee mirrors the left. We'll sink back into child's pose. Landing here, more balanced than the previous cycle. Craft the depth from this stable foundation. Think about engaging the core. Think about elongating the lumbar. Think about relaxing across the shoulder girdle, getting the capacity to breathe through the torso easily and fluid. And so just as the sun is disappearing behind the horizon, the sun's light is reflecting off of the rising moon. These two travelers come to a Y in their path. The path to the left goes exactly in the direction that they want to go, but it also leads into a dense forest. The path to the right stays on this wide, clear trail, but it's skirting around the edge of the forest and thus in the opposite direction of where they're headed. When it feels appropriate, let's engage the fingertips into the mat. We'll pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, we'll curl our toes, lift our seat, and find down dog.
When it feels appropriate for you, let's sail our right foot straight back and behind us into three-legged dog. Push into the hands just a little bit extra actively and find some additional length. And then we'll step our right foot forward into lunge. As the right foot lands, ground the left heel and think about balancing the weight distribution between the front and back foot. Then smooth into that right quad. And we'll sweep ourselves up into warrior one, hugging back into that anterior hip crease on the right side, keeping the shoulders and hips pointed straight forward. With an exhale, let's bring our torso down onto that right thigh. Fingertips reach towards the front of the room. And then we'll sweep ourselves back up into warrior one. Slide back into your right hamstring. And we're going to take that same exhale, arms extend forward, reaching the torso out. If it feels accessible, you can release all the way down. If this doesn't feel accessible, bend the knee and let the hands and foot provide that tripod of stability. So maybe we have the leg extended, maybe we don't, but there's a tripod of stability between both hands and that front foot. Spin your left heel up and step your left foot forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands while walk into down dog. Take the left foot and extend it straight back and behind you. Push into the hands to get that extra little bit of length. Step your left foot forward into lunge. Round your right heel. Sweep straight up into warrior one. Hug back through that left anterior hip crease. Anchor and stability. Ilium point straight forward, shoulder girdle straight forward. Exhale, torso comes down, extending forward towards that left thigh. Lengthen the spinal column. Sweep yourself back up. And then draw back into that left hamstring. Be stable, anchored, and foundationally strong. We'll exhale and reach forward. If accessible with the leg extended, we're going to release to the ground. If not, we're going to bend the knee to make that possible. Active awareness in the stability of the front and back foot. Good, full, solid breath. Eventually, your right heel is going to spin up, and we'll step forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Relax once again in a way where the spinal column can elongate. We'll drift our awareness to our sacrum, either roll or sweep ourselves up into mountain. Hands coming together at heart center. And here we'll just really anchor into your mountain. Really try to feel into how the entirety of both feet are providing you stability and feedback, how your body's responding constantly to little micro shifts. And then when it feels appropriate, we're gonna take the left heel, lift that off the ground. See if it feels accessible to bring that left knee up to a little half Karate Kid. And then if that feels accessible, we're gonna take our left ankle across our right thigh. And so we've created a standing figure four. The foundation of the foot now, the singular foot, still is our primary source. We're receiving the feedback from the bottom of the foot, how that plantar fascial tissue is responding, the micro adjustments our ankle is making to stay balanced. If it's accessible to be here, we're gonna sink the seat back towards this figure four chair. Palms can be together, they can be up, arms can be extended. The extension can provide some like anchoring, offsetting positions, help with a little bit of stability. And then we'll rise back up and the left foot will plant. We'll relax here. As you relax, think about what happens within the structure of the body. And then as the musculature drops into that relaxation, does it pull the scaffolding, the structure down? Think about re-engaging the scaffolding,
creating that length. And then we will, that height, I guess, then we'll get light in the right heel. And we'll see if it's accessible to pull that right foot into a little half Karate Kid, right knee into a half Karate Kid. If we can get stable here, if we feel solid here, if we can feel the feedback from the bottom of the left foot and how the ankle's adjusting and how we're making these constant little movements, we can take that right ankle across our left thigh. So we end up in our standing figure four. Thinking again about how the bottom of the foot is allowing us to be here. How it is the foundation of stability that is allowing us to be here. And then we will, if this is accessible, sink our way back into this figure four chair. Thinking about what arm placement allows us the best ability to be foundationally anchored here. And then when it feels appropriate for you, releasing that right foot and relaxing once again. And then refinding the structural integrity, interlacing the fingers and pushing the palms or the knuckles away from us, and inhaling the arms up and overhead. Retract the scapula, and at the same time, push down into the feet, flex the quads, and try to get this length. And then let's exhale through fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands. We'll walk our way back into down dog. Drive the energy from the hands up through the spine and into the hips. Feel that pressure back into the hip space. And then let's come down to hands and knees tabletop. Flip the tops of the feet and sink back into child's pose. Full re-anchoring in child's pose. We'll give ourselves 30 more seconds here. The two travelers have a discussion about which direction to go. The first traveler wants to go left through the forest and in the direction of the town they're headed towards. The second traveler says, it's dark, it's dangerous, it's hard to walk in such darkness. Let's stay on the path and we'll wind our way around. When it feels appropriate for you, let's pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop. Reestablish our foundational shape. Think about how the fingerprints, finger mounds are active here. Feel how the shoulders are active here. We're going to do a shoulder rotation, thread the needle. I just want to pre-warn, do not pull that humeral head out of the shoulder socket. So to do this, we'll walk our right hand underneath our left. It heads over. I think once you get the right elbow basically at heart center, you're enough. So you can drop straight down here. Even this, if we put too much weight on an unprotected shoulder, can start to pull the humeral head out. So if you get here and you feel like the shoulder is dysfunctional, retract energetically all of this stabilizing musculature in the right shoulder back so that you're pulling the whole humerus up and integrating into that shoulder socket.
Eventually, we'll look to pull or rotate that palm, the right palm, up.
But most important is that our shoulder is integrated.
And I know some of you have been practicing with me for, shoot, a long time. And I've harped on this, but shoulder integrity, very, very important. Especially as we age, we want to be able to move things around. And the shoulders are necessary to do that. Give yourself just 15 more seconds here on this first side. And when it feels appropriate, let's
pull that right arm back. We'll replant. Splay the fingers out. Activate the hands. Curl your toes. Lift your seat and find down dog.
Now, the right shoulder is likely going to feel different than the left, right? Likely going to have a little bit less stability. Think about how you can continue to use that shoulder stabilizing musculature to create stability for the right shoulder as we get back into the depth of this down dog shape. And then let's come down for hands and knees tabletop.
And we'll do the same thing to the second side. So we are going to walk our left hand underneath us. When the elbow gets to heart center, I think that's far enough. We start to drop down. We make sure the shoulder's integrated. Then we roll the palm. I like to get the shoulder integrated before we roll the palm. It's just internal rotation is a shape that we don't get into that often. We are internally rotated with the palm down. We retract, we pull that, then we open to the external rotation. And we should be nice and wound up in that stability. You can play with depth of the shape by engaging the core or pushing the sacrum back. Really just thinking about staying engaged in the shoulder is the primary thing. Once you feel super duper comfortable with that, then maybe we play with other aspects of the shape. Eventually, when you feel balanced left to right, use that right hand, pull our left back to its appropriate side of the mat. Splay the fingers out. That really helps to activate the hand musculature. So once you get those fingers out wide, curl your toes, lift your seat. Remember that your left shoulder now may have some instability. Continue to retract to feel that stabilizing musculature as you get the hips higher and higher into the shape. And then we'll come down to hands and knees tabletop. Sink back into the final child's pose of class. Note how the shoulder space opens up the potential for depth in child's pose. So that upper back, that whole shoulder girdle kind of goes into a natural version of flexion, right? It's forced into the flexion as it rounds over our thighs. Think about how you can use lateral relaxation from that medial line, from the spinal column out towards the shoulders to allow more depth in the upper half of this shape, in the upper half of the torso. And so we get more and more ease. Eventually, when it feels right, we'll pull ourselves forward to hands and knees tabletop and extend our legs straight out in front of us. As the legs extend, let's find staff. We're going to take one traditional seated forward fold. We have done some work on the posterior chain, so how you get into this shape, totally up to you. I'm just going to walk my way in, but if you want to sweep the arms up and express out,
or you have another favorite way of getting into the shape, feel free. As a potential bonus, right? Actually, that's not true. Most of us have that ability, even if we need to bend the knees, that we can interlock our finger mounds and our toe mounds. If it feels good for you to do that, you can play with some of the shoulder tissue by just kind of alternating the toe mound presses. But this is certainly an optional play here. Knees can bend to make this happen. And maybe this isn't right for you. We'll give ourselves just another 30 seconds here. And when it feels appropriate, we'll walk ourselves back to staff, and then we're headed onto our backs. Nice work. As you find your way onto your spine, allowing for your body to just be receptive to the neutral support beneath you, received by the mat. Feel into what you have impacted, changed, shifted. Another cycle of breath here. Fully release into the exhale. And then let's start a little lateral sway with the knees. Just some dynamic movement. Movement here completely at your discretion. Whatever feels most ideal, most beneficial, most impactful. The next time the knees fall over to the left, let's let them stay there. We'll settle into this twist. And so because these two travelers have had so much time traveling together, they have systems for everything. When the two of them disagree, they have a solution. And it is, they take turns on who they follow. In this particular time,
It was the first traveler's turn. And so after much discussion, they had left into the forest. And very quickly, the canopy of the forest erases the light bouncing off the moon. And they're walking in near total darkness. They're walking for some time before the second traveler looks down, and they're not on the path. He brings us up. He says, I don't think we're on the path anymore. The first traveler says, I think the path just got a little rough. Let's keep going. We'll keep going. He says, I know the town's just up here. We're headed right towards it. Look at the compass. Last 30 seconds here. When it feels appropriate, we'll bring the knees back to neutral. And then exhale the knees over to the second side, settling in. The twist side 2. As the two are moving through the depth of this forest, they start to hear sounds. Off in the distance, but seemingly getting closer and closer. And they've been traveling for quite some time now. But the second traveler just stops. They get silent and they listen, and there's definitely something making these horrific sounds in the distance. Second traveler says, I know we're not on the path anymore. And the first traveler has to admit it. He says, I think you're probably right. But if we keep forging through the forest, if we go this direction, we will run into the town. We've come so far. The second traveler says, no, this isn't right. This isn't safe. This isn't what we want. The right thing is to stop right now and go back. Let you have a discussion. And it's now the second traveler's turn. So even though they disagree, they turn around. The second traveler painstakingly finds their tracks and follows them back until they eventually connect with that wide moonlit path that skirts the edge of the forest. When it feels appropriate for you, we'll bring our knees back to neutral. And as the knees come to neutral, just settle into this space. Ask yourself if there's anything that you might need, anything that you might want, anything that you would benefit from prior to Shavasana. If there is, let's offer that to ourselves right now. If you have everything you need, if you're ready for some stillness, let's settle into a shape where we can appreciate our version of Shavasana tonight. The two travelers find their way around the path, and eventually, almost as the sun is rising, they make it to town. They check into the inn where they have a reservation, and they get what sleep is available to them. Next morning, as they're checking out, the innkeeper says, "Wow, you guys got in late." And they share the story of how they tried to go through the dark forest. We'll start to bring some movement to our fingers and our toes. And as they say that, the innkeeper's jaw drops open. And he's shaking his head and he says, "You should not have gone in there. That path should be closed. We closed that path 4 years ago." Movement to your wrists, your ankles. To your elbows, knees, shoulders, hips, neck, head, jaw, eyes, tongue. Eventually, the entirety of the body moves, and we utilize that movement to transition from the shapes we are in back into a seat. In our seated space, spine gets tall, breath gets fluid, eyes closed. The innkeeper says, "That forest has been overrun by monsters. No one should ever go in there." The two travelers look at each other, and the first traveler thanks the second for making them do the right thing. With our next inhale, we'll bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, beyond, and you remember that it is never too late and it is never wrong to do the right thing. See how that impacts your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening's practice and for being you continually. Namaste. Oh, happy Monday, guys. Absolutely love the heck out of you. Take care of yourself this week. I will be back on Sunday and we'll recharge and we'll do this thing again next Monday. Love you so much. Wow.